Well, hi everyone. Babula and I are back again on our, what is it? Our the coming up on the full moon in Sagittarius. So we've got a lot to talk about because there's a lot going on in June. Actually, we have a lot to talk about all the time, don't we, Babula?
Yeah, we do. There always seems to be a lot happening.
But I wanted to start off with looking at the Aquarian energy that's around at the moment, because Aquarius is all, you know, it's about we the people, it's about people coming together in groups and causes and humanity. And I was talking to a group yesterday, and it struck me that all these horrible things, which we see as horrible, the pandemic, the loss of jobs, the businesses failing, all those sorts of things, falling, I should say, in all that, it's like there's a pearl of great price, which to me is the rehumanizing of humanity. Getting back in touch with what it means to be human, right? What's important to us, all the values, all that sort of stuff. And it's sort of like this evolution of our civilization. So how does Aquarius play out with that? And I know that this has something to do with what's going to happen after 2022. So enlighten us, great guru.
I'll see what I can do. Well, yes, it's so fascinating. And I think, it feels like we're going through quite a dark time in many ways. But, we might also say we've been through a dark time for a long, long time. We could also, and some would refer to that as the Kali Yuga, I know, in the Indian Vedic understanding of things. There are these great yugas or periods, and that we're in the Kali Yuga, which is a long, long period of time, and that we're coming to the end of it. And it seems that that energy is intensifying. It's so much drama and intensity and events, and on a mass scale. And absolutely, you mentioned Aquarius. It's not just a pocket here and a pocket there. It's global. And it's been building up on a global level for some time now. Global corporations, like politically, everything. We can move around the globe so easily. And we use the internet to communicate. So, we're having this conversation and anybody can watch it. Once we've posted it online, anybody anywhere on the planet can see it pretty much. These things are all part of the Aquarian energy that we're moving towards, and on a big level in terms of ages. So there are astrological ages which last about roughly 2,200 years. So we're coming to the end of an age, the age of Pisces, and we're moving we're sort of at the crossover cuspal period, which doesn't happen in a moment or even in a year, although 2020 feels like a major piece of that transition. It sure is. And when we move into a new era, there are bigger cycles at play here too. But just looking at that one, those sort of roughly 2,000-year cycles, it's no small thing. Like I watch, even when the sun changes sign every month, as it does. The sun's moving through Gemini, so all the Geminis are having their birthday. They were born with the sun in Gemini. And after 4 weeks, it will leave Gemini and go into Cancer. And if you're tuning in and watching and paying attention, you can actually feel the shift. There's an energetic shift that happens. And this is true of these big cycles. There is a massive energetic shift going on. But in order for this previous cycle, which we can speak of as about 2,000 years, but I actually see it as even bigger than that. Some are speaking in terms of 13,000 years, way back in the age of Leo and so on. And there's these huge cycles. We know the Mayan calendar, worked in enormous cycles of time. And pretty much every system of thought concurs that this time on planet Earth is a time of great shift. Whichever direction you look at, all the traditions and teachings and bodies of knowledge speak of this as being a critical time. And it's all moving us towards this age of Aquarius. It's not just a hippie song from the 70s, you know, like it's so much more than that. And so, yes, Aquarius is about the people. It's about humanity. It's at its very sort of best expression, and every sign has its best expression and its shadow side, every single sign. But at its very best expression, Aquarius is about equality, liberation of the people, truth, freedom. Everybody is an individual, free to live their lives according to their own heart and soul and being, and to celebrate everyone's differences. You know, yes, you're different to me, but I celebrate you as who you are. You know, so this is a big shift for humanity to make, because the world doesn't function like that, the world that we've been living in. There are some who do, and there are people who have that kind of consciousness and know that that's what it needs to be, but by and large, that's not the way things are. It's not how they're set up currently. So yes, so the people, it's a sign that's got a lot to do with awakening and waking up. And you'll see in social media, like many people saying, like wake up, wake up. We're being called to awaken, as it seems like almost on a daily basis, there's shock after shock, like there are shock waves.
Yeah.
And if you look at the symbol for Aquarius, it's those two wavy lines. They're lines of energy, they're like lightning lines, and they're also like shock waves, like seismic shock waves, to sort of jolt us away. I can't tell you how many times, it seems like it's on a daily basis, my thinking and my perceived notions of how things are just getting turned on their head. And I feel like my mind is just being blown open, and I'm loving it. I'm just saying, okay, I'm available now. Like, I feel like there's going to be surprise after surprise after surprise. And what I once thought was true, I'm now going, I don't think that's true anymore. It's blowing my mind, and it's so liberating, because I think that's what needs to happen. And that's, I think, this huge shift that's taking place. We're all being called up and invited to open our minds and consider maybe something else is actually going on here, other than what we're being told. You know, maybe something else. And so this is this Aquarian call, you know, and it's for every single person on the planet to participate in that in whatever way they're able to. And there are such forces of control in this world who've been doing this for a long time. So it's been going on for so long that collectively humanity isn't even aware of it, because we're born into it. It's just the way things are. So it's tremendous. It's seismic what's going on, you know, and it's shocking. It's shocking.
It's like soul quakes, you know.
That's right. So we know the earth quakes and she moves and things come crashing down.
Yeah,
it's kind of what's going on, you know.
Yeah.
And so you know, the planet Uranus, which is the Aquarian planet, was discovered in 1781, and since then there's been like rapid change on the planet in so many ways, like technologically, in so many ways. And there's been a lot of revolution. So there are people who are very sort of aligned with that Uranian Aquarian energy, and are always looking forward to the future, to what could be. You know, and getting together in groups and networks and communicating, and communes and communities, and for some individuals it's like the urge to opt out of the system and find completely other radical alternative ways. It's all like all these experiments in trying to free ourselves from that grip of the past, which has pretty much had humanity by the throat to a large degree, you know. So it's big stuff, it's pretty intense, but it's also quite exciting. Now, some people might be shocked that I would even say such a thing in a way, because I know it's very scary for many people. But in terms of one thing Aquarius does for us. It helps us to step back, detach ourselves from the emotional drama and all the emotions and the high charge of our opinions. Now, it's like this and I'm right, and I know, and it's this and it's not that. Step back and just watch. And I'm finding myself doing that a whole lot more. It's like stepping back, taking my hands off and just going, this is interesting. Look at that. I wonder if that's true. I wonder if that's true. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's that's an Aquarian thing to do. Step back, detach and watch and keep your mind open.
Yes. Wow, there's so much in that, and I'm just thinking of so many things while you're talking, because if going back to the dark night of the soul situation, which we're all going through, and I've been in that through a 10-year illness, and in those situations, it's like everything's slippery. You can't grab onto anything, and it's like I've said recently to someone, the future is up for grabs now. That what we thought was gave us structure and order before, that's disappearing very quickly. And like you were saying, the people that are coming together in groups, they're actually, I see that as the seeds for a different future, and moving forward, building those foundations, even though we may not even be aware that we're doing it, because in that coming together, we're bringing like-minded people together.
Yes.
So that new community is building and building and building.
Yes.
And there was something else you said about, the other thing is that, with having said everything that you did, Aquarius is really struggling though, because that to retain the freedom, there's a real battle there, isn't it? Push-pull with retaining that freedom for as individuals and a society, rather than that old energy that's trying to keep us back.
That's right. And so people who are by nature Aquarian Uranian will buck against those constraints. And it is a sign that's got a lot to do with rebellion and revolt. And there are ways to rebel and revolt. For example, as Mahatma Gandhi knew, he said, we will not take arms, but we will win this battle. We will not take up arms. There will not be bloodshed, but we will win this battle. So it's not that you have to go, doesn't have to be a bloody fight, but there's this instinct to push back against those forces of control, which are very powerful and have been on the planet for a long time. And it's only people coming together and sharing knowledge and giving each other mutual support and encouragement, and from a place of heart and truth and light, not from a place of just rage and destruction. And I get the impulse for rage and destruction. You suppress something or someone for long enough and it wants to lash out. I get that, but that's, and I understand why that happens, but yes, we really need to, I think, be in this for the long haul. I think this is a long journey. It's not going the other side. I don't think the other side is going to happen tomorrow or even next year. Although next year there will be another shift, and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I think it's a process, and astrology helps us to look at all of these things unfolding and make some kind of a sense of it from that sort of more detached place. Like you'll hear one of the phrases you'll come out of astrologers' mouths all the time is, oh, isn't that interesting? Look at that. That's so interesting, because it's just so interesting.
Yeah. That's the magic of it, isn't it? Is being able to correlate astrological energies to things playing out on the planet.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the magic of it, I think. That's and a lot of people don't fully understand that. And it takes, because you're an astrology teacher, it takes years to understand it.
It does. And it's, but, I always love teaching beginners astrology, because one of the things I have always seen, and it was my own experience as well, was the thrill and the excitement as people's minds just go, oh my God, I had no idea. And it just opens up a whole new world, you know, of discovery and recognition. And I think it helps us to understand that, yeah, everything really is interconnected. You know, we are connected to planets, to cosmoses, to everything. Plants, trees, everything. You know, it's all one big piece, and it's not separate from us.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and I think that realization is really reinforced when we, you know, follow the movements of planets.
Yes, yeah.
It's very evident.
So that's the big picture.
Yeah.
So let's, in the back of all this, and you did mention about, which made me think of Venus. So from my notes from listening to you in the past, from April 4th to August 8 is Venus in Gemini. So we've got that energy going on in the background, which is connecting heart to head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you, sorry, go on.
No, ask a question. You're going to ask something specific, or do you want me to
I was going to, so how do you see, or do you see that playing itself out at the moment? Because I know that Venus is about, you know, relationship and connecting with people through that love energy, which you mentioned. And we have seen some examples of that with the riots on the streets in the protests on the streets in the US, where police officers are taking a knee to the ground with the protesters. And when I saw that, I thought, gosh, that's Venus in action, isn't it? You know, reaching out to those people, saying, I validate you, I understand you, I care about you, all those sorts of things, and creating relationships.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Do you see it playing out anywhere else?
I do. It's an important time when Venus is in a retrograde period. You know, she's spending quite a long time in Gemini relative to her normal speed, because she's in this retrograde phase in Gemini. And, you know, Gemini is about information, knowledge, words, ideas, communication, how we think, how we speak, what we're learning. Is our mind open? And naturally it wants to connect and communicate. But the thing about Venus in Gemini is that at its best, it's about a communication between the heart and the mind, and a communication with others from the heart. Like it's an expression of love through our communication. and it's a very important time when Venus goes retrograde, which she does every 20 months, because right now, in this 42-day retrograde period that she's in the sign of Gemini, right now she's joined exactly with the Sun. The Sun and Venus are together, and that's why we're not seeing Venus in the night sky. She's been the evening star for many, many, many months. And we're not seeing her in the evening sky after sunset now, because she and the Sun have come together. So when the Sun goes down in the evening, Venus is with the Sun, and when the Sun comes up in the morning, and so we can't see her in the day. We can see the Sun, we can't see Venus, because she's obliterated by the light of the Sun, but she's not actually obliterated. I see them as joining in union. And Venus, the goddess of love, you know, the bringer of light, and the heart energy has joined with the power and the light of the Sun. And Venus is our brightest star. You know, there's this tremendous kind of event of light going on. That's how I see it. And then Venus and the Sun will slowly start to separate. And in about a week or so, she's going to reappear, but now as the morning star. And same star, same planet, but now she's a morning star. And she will come up before the Sun, sort of lead her light, the light of love is going to literally sort of lead the way, having imbued all this energy from the Sun and the Sun from Venus. So it's symbolically, it's all very fascinating. But I think how this might be impacting us all is what I'm observing and what I'm experiencing in myself. In Gemini, it's how open are we, and how much of this can our heart absorb? And I know for some people they're completely overwhelmed by everything that's happening. It's like, when is this going to stop? Well, if we can stretch ourselves and open ourselves enough, we do have the capacity to take all of this on. It doesn't mean we don't take care of ourselves. You know, it's huge what's happening. We have to practice self-care and take care of ourselves in it, and know when to rest and so on, and maybe switch off from it. And we have to be willing, and our hearts and our minds are really being called up now to be willing to consider both sides, not only two sides, many sides. Because every person on the planet is processing this and experiencing this in their own individual way, and it's all valid. We all have to be willing to allow that everyone's experience is valid. You know, nobody has ownership of any particular opinion. You know, we love to claim our own opinion, and that's okay to have to do that, but to recognise that other people's opinion and expression and experience is valid as well. So. And Gemini is mutable. Everything's moving, moving, moving. It never stops. You watch Geminis, they never stand still or sit still. It's always moving, and everything is moving. And you know, the sign of Pisces is involved as well. It's connected to all this Gemini energy. That everything's fluid and moving and shifting fast. So it takes a lot to just stay really open to all of it. And keep questioning and inquiring. Gemini is the sign of tremendous curiosity. I wonder what that is. What's that? What's that about? The so-and-so just said, what's that about? You know, instead of, oh, instant discard. That can't be right. Yeah, so to keep questioning, that inquiring mind. You know, in the spiritual world, they speak about self-inquiry. And I think, and Byron Katie, it's this wonderful work and such a powerful sentence that she asks in the work process is that true? And the follow-up to that is, can you know for absolute certain that that's true? And when you actually stop and look at it, it stops you dead in your tracks. I've experienced that many times. I've had that experience in that work. Can I absolutely know for absolutely certain that that's true? Actually, I can't know. Unless I was there, unless it was my direct experience, I'm just responding to what I'm hearing in the airwaves. And it might be true and it might not be true.
Yeah.
But I think this is a really important time for us all to stay tuned, stay awake, stay alert, watch, listen, consider, and pay attention to what resonates in our heart and in our own soul. You know, I feel that there's a truth in that some place inside of us knows when something resonates as truth. You mightn't have hard evidence for it, but it's something in the soul responds, and the heart, it responds. It has a ring of truth to us. But if we're only going through our mind, which Gemini can do, it's one of the air signs, if things are only filtered through the mind, we can be missing a whole lot, you know, just missing such important pieces of the story.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm seeing a lot of is that people are, like you say, unless you're there, you can't know for certain whether something's actually true.
Can't know for certain.
And we're seeing a lot of that happening in the reports from the medical profession. And people are choosing to accept what this particular doctor says is true and discarding that person.
That's right.
And really, they're not realising that they're just taking a stance based on what they will and won't accept. Rather, because they're not there. They're not there. They're not doing the testing. They're not doing this and all the medical work themselves.
That's right.
They're just choosing to accept someone's word over another, or because we all have our own biases. Right.
We do. And I think a really good question too, which, you know, little Gemini children, parents of them will know, is just going, well, why? Why would, you know, if you're receiving an opposing view to, I'll use the term the mainstream view, and you hear an opposing view, which some people might call conspiracy theory, because that's the sort of popular term that's thrown around to discard something, to stop and go, well, why would somebody think the opposite to what, you know, the bulk of people? Why? What's that about? Maybe I should have a look. Like, simply to have a look and have the mind open enough to question and ask, what's that? Why? Why would all these people think like that? I don't get it.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
because I'm over on this side, but I wonder what that's about. But
yes,
so that's a big ask for people, but it's critical. It's critical for us all, you know, to be open to it all. And it's challenging. I've had many of my, you know, concepts and ideas and attitudes turned on their head. And and this is where Sagittarius comes in, if we're lovers of truth, like truly, if that's what we're about, then that's what we're about. And we will question, and we will inquire, and we will doubt, and we will ask, and we will look further. You know, and that's the Sagittarius Gemini, you know, let me inquire into this a bit more.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, those two signs, which are very, you know, this full moon is what coming up now, is what this is about. So while the sun's in Gemini, the full moon, when the sun's in Gemini and the moon is exactly opposite in Sagittarius. So the moon is being fully lit by the light of the sun, and the moon's in Sag, and Sag is that arrow of truth. I'm seeking the truth. It's a sign of the seeker, the quest for higher truth. What is the real truth here? And that arrow has to penetrate through many layers and many veils of illusion and fantasy and the dream spell. Yeah, and it kind of takes a lot of guts, actually, in a way, to do it, and courage to just keep questioning and keep looking and keep doubting and seeking more answers, which often just uncover more questions.
Yes, yeah. And I really relate to that because I have sun in Sagittarius and moon in Gemini.
There you go.
And I'm a researcher. So
Yes.
I look at the information, and I can also look at witness testimony too. And I have to separate the facts from their interpretation.
Yes.
Because, you know, and by the time someone comes to me to tell me their story of something that's happened to them, I've got to very diplomatically say, okay, so tell me what happened, tell me from the beginning. And then they'll say, and this happened, and then something showed up. And I said, well, how do you know it was that? You know, well, because that's what I thought it was. Yes, but what actually was it? You know, like, just give me the description. So it's that separating of belief, bias, personal interpretation, and I know why that goes on, from the actual facts.
And that's not easy for us so often, because we naturally, you know, we are emotional creatures, and we kind of imbue things with our emotional reactions and responses and so on. And I think that's an important part of our experience. But yes, it's a lot to sift through, isn't it? But I think that inquiring mind, that questioning mind, like, where's that information coming from, and what's it about, and does it fit into what I'm seeing over here? And these are like two opposite things, and what's that one and what's this one? And and then we've got our own innate. I do believe very deeply in instinct. We have instinct, but our instincts have been very dull.
Yes.
And we're quite cut off from them. And it's like what our guts is telling us, and what our heart is telling us, and what some place deep in our soul knows. I really do believe that place in us knows, but it's often not comfortable. Because it feels more comfortable and safer to kind of go along with what we're told and what we're presented with, and it just feels easier. You know?
Well, I sort of put it down to, and this is, I guess, comes in to, have we got a Cancer aspect coming up on the 21st of June with the full moon going into that, and you can talk about that. But it's about the competing emotional commitments. To retain our equilibrium in life, we choose beliefs. We choose information which supports a belief, and over time we develop a belief. But when it comes to a time when that belief is no longer serving us and it's past its use by date, it's not always easy to let that go.
No.
Because it exists in culturally and socially, and in our smaller groups as well, in the workforce that we might circulate in our friendship group. So sometimes when something happens to us to wake us up, like a soul quake, for example, someone might have a paranormal experience, for example, right?
Yes.
And they go and tell everyone else, and they go, oh, no, you're just, that's rubbish. But
That's
it
crazy.
actually happened to that person.
That's right.
And they've got to decide, well, they would have before that, who they will tell and who they won't.
Exactly.
And they've got to just, once they decide to go to tell everyone they know, they've opened a gate in their mind they've decided to go down that path, whereas someone else may not, and they will weigh that up. And they'll say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk about that. People will think I'm nuts. I'll be dragged off to the asylum, all those sorts of things. Or they'll give me medication for mental health problems. And I don't want to lose my circle of friends. I don't want to be loud, all those sorts of things. So they've got, it's a competing emotional commitment.
Yes.
People invest in.
Yes. Yes. That's right. And it's very understandable. It's a huge thing to come out, and use that phrase, and I'm noticing that. I'm noticing it in myself. I'm noticing it around me. Because this is such a critical time, I think many are kind of stepping forward and kind of actually speaking out in ways they've never done before. I'm noticing that myself, and I'm seeing it around me in my life and in social media and so on. And because it just feels like the time calls for that, and that can mean that it can have an impact. And this is part of Venus in Gemini. It can have an impact on our relationships with people. So some people are literally experiencing that friendships are falling away because this person has stepped forward and has started to speak about their own perception of things, and then other people are in disagreement. So, but they've taken that chance because this has become more important. And I'm seeing that. This is very Venus retrograde in Gemini. Are we willing to step forward? I'll say these words because they were just what just came into the light, and kind of reveal more about who we are and where we're coming from, at the risk of offending people. And I'm actually seeing good friends of mine on Facebook sharing their experience with this. They're finding that they can't hold back anymore. They have to speak. They have to show up, even if people close to them are offended and fall away, even if. And this, I think, is a big piece of what's going on with Venus retrograde. Because I think the times are calling for it.
Yeah, it's almost like an initiation, isn't it?
It is. That's a very good way to put it. It really is.
People are being called, and not everyone will answer. It's like there's some seeds are being thrown onto the barren earth, and some of them will take, and a lot of them won't. They'll just blow away in the wind.
That's right.
It's a very interesting time. And I was thinking when you were speaking before that we are being shifted. With a lot of things that are happening now have had to happen for a long time, and then they have not been good for just about everybody. And because I think as a civilization, people have not been willing to let go of things voluntarily, and so external forces are happening, and we perceive them as happening to us. But in the bigger picture, maybe they're happening for us.
Yeah. I do. That's how I see things, really. In the bigger picture, step back and look at the whole thing and extend out into big periods of time. Like if we're only looking at what's happening in my, and that's valid to look at what's happening in my daily life now. That's a valid human experience. And I completely honour and respect that for all of us. But then when we step back and see this in big time spans, and this piece right here, if we could see it from a distance, we go, whoa, this is huge, because it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on that point, maybe we can talk about this little point in time in this month with what's going on.
Yeah, good. I that's right. There is a lot. And, you know, I shared a post on Facebook about a week ago about as we moved into June, you know, just I listed them because there was so much. I thought the only way I can do this is a list. So I just list one after another. You know, all of the the main ones, movements through June. So today's, June the 4th is an important date with the Venus-Sun conjunction while Venus is retrograde. This is a point on the 5-pointed Venus star. It's a cycle she makes every 8 years, and there's 5 points on this star, and right now she's forming one of those points. And in 20 months' time, she'll form another one. And on the full moon coming up on June the 6th in Australia, it's a full moon, but it's also a solar eclipse. So solar eclipses always occur on full moons. Not every full moon is a solar eclipse. A solar eclipse occurs every 6 months at the full moon. And I remember years ago reading in an astrology book, someone described a full moon as a lunar eclipse as a full moon on steroids. And I think it's a great description, you know, kind of, it's a full moon, but wow, you know, really strong. And it's because, just in simple terms, the full moon is aligned with the north and south nodes of the moon, and it just makes it really significant. And historically, you know, the old astrologers of long ago used eclipses to predict things like, you know, the death of the king and winning the battle and, you know, big events like that. And they were seen as real portents of big changing events. And they're very powerful catalysts. And the eclipses are occurring every 6 months. And so we're in eclipse season now, and things just get really intensified. And because this one's occurring, and over the next 18 months or so, many of the eclipses, the next 2 years, so many of the eclipses are going to occur across Gemini, Cancer. And this highlights these themes of communication, truth, media, information, what's really true. Am I getting all the information? Let me look at all of it from every different angle. Now, not everyone's going to want to do that. I understand that. For those of us who are kind of wired up to, I want to know what's going on, and are questioning and looking, this is a really big time. But I think it also signifies that a lot is going to be revealed. A lot of stuff is coming out and is going to keep coming out. And it's going to rattle the world, you know. So I think just, you know, stay awake, stay alert, and recognize that things are going to keep moving and they're going to keep shifting. We were never going to expect 2020 to be a nice, stable, kind of easygoing year. So this eclipse is very important. This eclipse is extra charged because you've got the moon over here in Sagittarius, you've got the sun over here in Gemini, conjunct retrograde Venus. So we've got that Venus-Sun conjunction going on, which is a really important thing in itself, and now it's becoming part of the eclipse. So Venus is really strong right now, and the moon and the sun and Venus on the eclipse, all of that is forming a square up to Mars and Neptune in Pisces. So Mars is a player in this eclipse as well, as is Neptune. It's a lot. So Venus is the goddess, the love light, the heart. She's more powerful, I think, than we realize. And Mars is the masculine warrior's principle. And he's the god of battle and war and conflict and anger and the eruption of rage and fury and so on. But at his best, at his most elevated, at his highest consciousness, if you could say, Mars is literally the warrior of the light. Some would relate him to, for example, the Archangel Michael. You know, he's one of the great archangels who has a sword, you know, like, don't mess with me kind of energy. So that warrior energy of Mars can operate on many levels. You know, there is just the kind of brute bully who just lives for war and battle and fight and conflict. And then as we, you know, kind of evolve and keep transforming and working with that Mars energy and understanding it and healing the wounds around it, it becomes the warrior of the light who will absolutely go into battle on behalf of the light for truth. And that's a whole other thing. So all of that's going on. You know, we're seeing the eruption of violence. But there are also, I know there are extraordinary warriors of the light are also working. Mostly, in many ways, unseen. Some are out front. And I'm very grateful to them. There's a lot going on. But that combination with Neptune, it's like Neptune will often shroud everything in mists and, you know, these veils. And I keep saying things like, things are not all that they seem. Don't believe everything you hear. There's a lot going on. You know, there are smoke screens, there are many illusions, and you know, how are we able to use our consciousness to sort of penetrate through these veils and keep seeking the truth here? It's a big thing. So it's a very important eclipse, this one, as we're experiencing. We just look at what's going on. It's, you know, everything's magnified and very intense and moving very, very quickly. And then and then and then you get like so we've got, you know, Venus and the Sun and the Moon and Mars and Neptune, and over the next following days then you get Mars and the Sun make an exact square, and then Neptune and the Sun make an exact square. And on June the 14th, Mars will join completely up to that Neptune. They will be together. Things are going to get... And, you know, with Neptune, sometimes you just go, things are getting really weird. What's going on? You know, it's just like, it's just all over the place.
Yes.
And it's like that, you know. And I'm also speaking with some people, and I totally understand this. I have sometimes experiences with Neptune too. Strangely, I'm not at the moment. Sometimes people just feel completely overwhelmed by it all. Like I can't handle it anymore. It's overwhelming because it's so much. And it's on many different levels and on many dimensions. And it's not just one thing. It's things are happening in people's personal lives. That's the other thing about Venus retrograde I really want to bring in here. People's personal relationships are going through a lot. Partnerships, relationships with siblings, with friends, husbands, wives, lovers, partners, going through a lot. So that's a part of all of this as well. And when you get Venus and Mars in a square aspect to each other now, which they are, which is, if you just took that piece out, you know, this is also that kind of struggle between that masculine and feminine energy and man and woman and so on. So take a big breath, everybody. And I think this is important. We have to just keep breathing and, you know, shaking and loosening up and going for a walk outside and taking big gulps of air and, you know, opening up to the sky and the heavens. And, you know, if we just keep contracting it at all, it is too much. We have to try and keep opening and expanding and shaking, loosening, keeping ourselves loose as possible.
Yeah, maintaining that balance.
Yeah, it's huge. And then I'll just kind of carry on a little more on the 18th of June.
There's more?
And then, there's more. Our dear friend Mercury says, there's something there's a piece I need to have to play in all of this too. I've got something important to offer, and he turns retrograde on the 18th of June at 14 degrees of Cancer. So, we're all familiar, I think most people are familiar with, or at least have heard of it, Mercury retrograde, and it can play havoc with communications and so on. And one thing I've noticed, particularly when it's retrograding in a water sign, people often just very quickly start feeling really tired, and it can have an impact on our health. Mercury has got quite a lot to do with health. So I really recommend to people when Mercury is retrograde to try and not overschedule your life.
Right.
Like, don't fill your diary up. I know that's not always easy and it's not always possible. We'll have demands on our life, but where possible, try and kind of keep it as relaxed as we can so that we've got time to rest and breathe. And because Cancer is also about self-care and self-nurture and, and sort of look after ourselves a bit. It can be a challenge.
That Mercury retrograde is about a third of the year, isn't it? It's like,
well, yeah, 3 times every year it goes retrograde.
Yes.
And usually, like, at some point through it, people are going, oh God, when's it going to turn direct again? Now some people love Mercury retrograde. I actually know people who love it, and I know some people who have Mercury retrograde who were born with it in their chart. They often seem to sail through Mercury retrograde periods and hardly even notice it. But very commonly, people's equipment breaks down. I often laugh and say Mercury retrograde often costs me money. Like our technical, the washing machine breaks down, the computer goes on the blink, you lose your phone, or you drop it in the river or something. I mean, stuff happens to our equipment.
Yeah. And I've heard from some astrologers, they say when Mercury is retrograde not to sign any contracts too.
Yes, it's really a good idea to really not make important. I've bought shoes and afterwards gone, I never wear these shoes. Why did I buy them? I don't like them. They don't fit. They're all completely wrong. Like, only purchase if you really have to. And if you have to, take your time. Don't rush, because we can make snap decisions. And later we just go, what was I thinking? Well, we weren't. We weren't thinking clearly. So when possible, avoid signing important contracts. And if you're selling a house and you get a contract, don't rush. Take your time, double check, get someone else to double check it, get a third person to double check it. Don't rush, take your time. And you may still go ahead, but at least you try and prepare yourself and inform yourself as best you can, because sometimes things are unavoidable. Sometimes disappointment just needs to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Or maybe you can reschedule it if it's something important.
So is that 5 planets retrograde that I'm counting?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
And in July, there's always a period in the year where there's a lot of planets retrograde. And it can feel like, and it's very real, I think, it can feel like nothing's moving forward. It just feels like we're not getting anywhere. Like, it's just that sense of one thing after another. It can almost feel like we're going backwards. And but it's an important time of going in and going deeper. We have to go deeper and look deeper, look more closely, investigate, learn, process. I often say it's a good time to research, to study, to slow down, because then later in the year, when one by one the planets get moving again, we can kind of look back and understand why all that needed to happen first. We don't always understand it while we're in it. It just feels a bit hard going. Yeah. And then things kind of get moving again, but now we kind of understand more, we know more, we see more.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of that's happening in June.
Yes, and then the final piece, there's one more important thing. 2 weeks after every full moon, there's a new moon. And because this full moon is an eclipse, then the new moon coming up on the 21st, of course, how can I forget on the 21st, is a solar eclipse. So it's a new moon solar eclipse, but not only is it an eclipse, it happens to be happening on the winter solstice, our winter solstice, the northern summer solstice. So the solstices are really powerful dates as well. They're important turning points. And it's not often at all that you'll see an eclipse happen right on that day. So that means the eclipse, the sun conjunct the moon, new moon, eclipse, solstice is 0 degrees of Cancer, because our winter solstice is always on the day that the sun enters the sign of Cancer. It's about 0 degrees of Cancer. And the eclipse, new moon, is 0 degrees of Cancer this year. That's extraordinary.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It's really extraordinary.
And Cancer is a very homey sign too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ruled by the moon. It's also about the soul. It's about the inner home as well as our human daily life, domestic world, our personal world, those near and dear to us, our personal relationships, bloodlines, but also soul family. But it's also our sense of what is home to me inside myself. You know, it's that sense of soul home. That's kind of, you know, people often say at different stages of their spiritual journey, I've said it myself at a number of different times throughout my life, I feel like I'm coming home, you know? And I think there are many stages to that sense of homecoming. So I think this is a really important thing. So absolutely, yes, our personal worlds impacted when, and then of course, for the 4 weeks after that, the sun will then be moving through the sign of Cancer. It's very much about nurture and love and mother, both literally mother, biological mother, but it's also about the mother, you know, and that very feminine realm of complete selfless, unconditional mother love, which is not what many of us experienced as a child, and none of us are perfect mothers either. Like, anybody can put up their hand and say they were a perfect mother. I doubt it, you know. So all these issues around mothering and motherhood and mother-child, and, you know, that kind of brings to mind lots of issues around the urge in us to, my own moon is in the sign of Cancer, so I get that connection to that thing of the mother and her innate desire to do anything to protect the vulnerable child. You know, so themes around the inner child, self-care, self-love, care for the child, the children of the planet. You know, I think those things are going to come up.
Do you think that could relate to Mother Earth?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the moon rules Cancer, but it's also exalted in the sign of Taurus, which I would sort of connect very much to Gaia. And in esoteric astrology, they say the moon rules Virgo, which is also about the earth and nature. Yeah. And the natural world and the plants and the animals and so on. So very, very, very much. And the moon is the celestial body that is the closest to the earth. You know, and the moon, the ruler of Cancer, is very much about our biology and all the waters that move in our body and the hormones and the chemicals in our actual body, you know, and the cycles and seasons and so on. So that's these two eclipses in June are particularly strong ones and particularly important ones, and that's just evident, you know, it's just pretty clear that that's happening, and it's just fascinating that they're happening right now. So things are moving. Um, on June the 23rd, Neptune turns retrograde to join the gang of retrograde planets. And on the 25th of June, the final piece is that Venus turns direct. And she'll start moving forward again. But it won't be till towards the end of July that she actually comes out of Gemini. So she's spending a long time, about 3 months in Gemini, whereas normally she'll move through a sign in about a month. So she's got work to do here in Gemini for us all.
Yeah. That's a big month.
It's big.
And it's a lot to digest and to unpack. So hopefully people, and that's why we do this, so that people can watch it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And look at it. So I'm just thinking, one last thing I'd just like to wind up with is you've said in the past that things are going to change in about the middle of June, I think, or sometime by the end of June or something, where the is it Saturn and Pluto will go back into that Capricorn energy?
Saturn. Absolutely. Saturn, I think it's in July.
Oh, July.
Saturn's retrograde now, but he's still in that early Aquarius energy. And it's moving slowly, but he's making his way back into Capricorn. And we can look at that next time. I think it's sometime in early July. Saturn will actually move back into Capricorn, and that's another important piece.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's like he went into Aquarius, so we've had 3 months of a glimpse of Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, which is where he's going to be next year. Which
I have to say hasn't been very looking too good.
It's been pretty wild, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's been very interesting. There's that astrological word again. It's been very interesting.
Yes.
And it's going to go back into Capricorn. So I'm, kind of intrigued just to see. It's like this story is not over. There is more to come. We are not. I don't think we're even close to being on the other side of it.
Yeah. So that's Saturn.
That's not people want to hear, but we're not.
So that's Saturn moving into Capricorn again,
yes.
which could again affect business and finances, economy.
That's right.
Government.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I just keep remembering that I used to have a very negative attitude towards Saturn. He just always seemed like a pain in the ass to me. Like, oh gosh, dude, really? Really? It just seemed like it's too hard. But I've learned to have great respect. And Saturn is very purposeful and very important. And he actually teaches us at its best integrity, clarity, honor. And it's like he puts our face in the reality, like this is real, this is reality, deal with it. He's like this tough voice. He says, you have to deal with this. You have to face this.
Yeah.
You can't sidestep this one, this is real. It's happening.
Yes. Yes.
And so we have to and he teaches us to be strong. He gives us a backbone, actually. Capricorns know about backbone.
Yes.
Capricorns are listening, you know about backbone.
Yes, very hard-working sign too.
Yes.
I was just going to say that I've lost it. Doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm like that all the time. Yeah.
No, that's okay. It was just something you said prompted me, but anyway, that's okay. That is another great month, another great fortnight's roundup.
And, let's remember to laugh, because we can't, disconnecting ourselves from joy is not the way to go. And I know it's not easy sometimes, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you and I can feel myself sort of sinking down
That's right.
with the weight of everything,
That's right. I know. And that's why I say, like, we have to remember, like, literally, like, our body is everything. Our body is literally, and I mean this literally, a temple.
Yeah.
It's not a metaphor, it's real to me. And we have to remember, like, blah, and like years ago, I used to do this meditation called gibberish. And believe me, it's extraordinary. And even if you just do it for a couple of minutes, and literally, you know, even if you need to shut all your windows and close your blinds, put on some loud music, shake your body like a mad woman or man, and make sounds. You know, just let yourself literally for 5 minutes go crazy.
Yes, yes. It's like that.
And actually, my experience is that at some point I usually end up in hysterics. It's so funny because you're freeing up all this stuck energy and anxiety and letting your body move, and it's just fantastic.
Well, I do colour consultations, colour therapy, and for me the colour for Aquarius is turquoise.
Yes.
And when you equate that in colour therapy, turquoise is about lightening up and letting go.
Fantastic.
And it's also about riding the waves of change. You know, you were talking before about the sign of the double lines.
Yes,
like that with Aquarius. It's about not getting caught up in the rip, but riding the waves of change and being opportunistic about it too. Like when dolphins are riding the waves, they see a wave. Oh, this wave's coming up. I'll grab that one, you know, and then I'll grab that one, and they'll grab. They don't see things as the waves that aren't there as an obstacle. They look for things that are there.
Wow.
And what will work. And doing that, riding those waves, and the spontaneity.
Yes.
In that. So that's, for me, it's like lighten up, let go, be creative, because that turquoise colour is all about this chakra here.
That's beautiful.
You know, that beautiful personal artistic expression.
Yes.
You have the paints and slap them around. And
that's gorgeous. Because I paint these days, and turquoise is one of my favorites. It's often the one I go for. I just love it so much.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And one of the last things in the colour of turquoise is individuation, which is really interesting at the moment, because I think people are separating themselves from the crowd.
Yes.
The social crowd and their own crowd, because they're finding that people that they knew have different ideas to what they thought they had.
That's
and
right.
We're learning a lot about other people's views on things, the people we've known for years, and they have an unusual view, or we think it's unusual or different or whatever.
Yes.
And they think the same thing about us.
That's right.
But, you know, in all that separation, and I like to say individuation, is that stepping back and seeing who I am, what I think, what I believe, how I perform and how I act in contrast to those, have my own experience, and then bring it back to the collective, because that's that turquoise colour. It's separation, but it's also remembering to come back and bring it back to the collective.
That's fantastic. I love that. That just really sings to me. And I'm seeing in what you were saying that, yes, our kind of sense of connections with certain peoples and groups is changing, and we're making new connections.
Yes.
With people, you go, oh, I never knew that.
Yes.
You know, and that's going, like, so everything is moving. It's almost as though nothing is holding anymore. Everything is moving.
It's like we're on a plate of wobbly jelly.
A plate of wobbly jelly. And we can be freaked out about that. So if we're terrified of change, we will. Or we can be excited by the incredible possibilities ahead. And that's a whole other thing.
Yes.
You know, and it's, you know, it is, in many ways, it's rough going, and it's not comfortable and easy. It's a bumpy ride. The waves are big. But they're operating on many levels. It's very personal, it's very global, but it's also universal. It's even beyond the earth, things that are happening. It's just so many things happening on so many levels.
Yeah. Well, Babula, thank you so much for a great roundup again.
Absolute pleasure.
Maybe we can sort of move some of that weight off us in the next 2 weeks.
And look, even, you know, things like this, just sort of, you know, breathing and, you know, clearing your energy, and or whatever you need, you know, lighting candles. I have a bell that I often ring, you know, just ring it around the house to sort of break up energy and open the windows, let in some fresh air, walk outside. All those things help. Otherwise we get stuck.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much again.
You're welcome, Sheryl.
We'll see you, everyone, in another 2 weeks.
Yes,
when we have the next moon cycle.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have another jam-packed hour of information too.
Sure,
and I find it really interesting, just because everyone wants to know what's happening, what's coming, what's you know, what's on the cards for us. So, and that's why I find astrology is so useful. So, thanks again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, and we'll see you later. Bye.